Hello. You have decided to take the plunge into Battletech and get started on the hobby. Good for you. But where do we go from here? The decision itself is only the first step of the road of 1,000 miles. So, what do we buy first? Which mechs do I use for which team? What is all these pieces of paper that I have to find? Will I ever get to speak to her again? I have the answer to most of those questions. First of all, we have this wonderful picture as a guide. We're going to go through it, and while it is mostly correct, the order is a little bit off. So, do I get the beginner box first? No, you do not. You do not get the beginner box first in most cases. I assume you know what a tabletop wargame is. I assume you know how to count and keep track of things on a character sheet. The beginner box is oversimplification. The main reason you take the beginner's box is what you get with it. Note, there are 2 beginner boxes. You do not get the one with the Griffin on it. You get the one with the Vindicator on it. Reason being, the one with the Griffin on the cover gives you a Griffin and a Wolverine. The one with the Vindicator on the cover replaces the Wolverine with a Vindicator. Otherwise, the 2 are pretty much identical. So why do I take the Vindicator? Because you'll see. What you get with the box is pretty much just the basics on how to play. Some premium quality but low detail character sheets for your mechs. The basic rules, which do not encompass heat, pilot hits, or, well, melee. It's just the intro on how to move your units, how to make them shoot, and who goes when, and what the terrain does. The very basic bones of the game, which is very useful if you're trying to teach your child or your normal friend how to play. The beginner box is for absolute beginners to the world of wargaming and tabletop gaming. You're probably not one of those if you're here. So I say don't get the beginner box first, despite its name, unless you want those minis or you really want those map sheets, which admittedly you don't find anywhere else. It is also, of all the starting kits, the worst value for your money. So if you're on a budget, keep that in mind. Where do we really start? Well, I assume you want to actually play Battletech. And if my assumption is correct, you should go straight ahead into the A Game of Armored Combat box. And if you get the beginner box, this should be the next thing you get. Now we're actually playing Battletech. Now you might be wondering what you get in this box. It promises a lot, and it shows you on the back what you get. You get a pair of dice, 8 mechs, mech sheets, you get the rules, mech swatches and pilot cards. It's rather a large amount of stuff, and it's good for the price. It's also the only way you can get any of these mechs for a long time. There is no actual way to get any of the mechs in this box other than the Wolverine. Other than this box. And the Wolverine comes from getting the wrong beginner's box. This is the beginning of your Battletech rabbit hole. It has everything you need to play the game. It has the 2 dice, it has 2 map sheets, it has some scenarios to run to familiarize yourself with the game proper. It's got full record sheets for your mechs. It gives you every rule you need to know how to play the game. This is the thing you should start with if you want to play Battletech. I say it before, it bears repeating. Then, arguably, I would say the next box you should get is the Reinforcements box. It's good with both the beginner box and A Game of Armored Combat, whichever you bought first. This is the best box for paintlets and other kinds of people who are allergic to arts and crafts. If you want to enforce the models agnostic version of the game, then this is the way to play it, as it comes with a plethora of cardboard standees and simplified mech record sheets similar to the beginner box. So if you're playing from the beginner box, this is a good way to keep that up, play with your large forces, and not have to spend money on the mechs, and see how it goes, see if you want to keep it going. It's good for the armored combat, because it gives you lots more units, even if they're not plastic minis, they are more units to play the game with. The contents, well, it's not bad. You're getting a lot of cardboard, and it's reflected in the lower price. Then comes the optional Clan Invasion box. This is the bane of players who only want 30-25 tech, as while many of the mechs you'll find in the Innisphere mech packs can still be used with only the basic introductory tech, this is already beyond the pale. The rulebook that you get in the Clan Invasion box isn't so much the rulebook of the game as the rulebook of how to use the things you find in this box. It has 8 minis, just like the Game of Armored Combat box, except 3 of them are squads of battle armor. I would have personally preferred 5 squads of battle armor and 5 mechs, because that is how a clan formation goes, but we can't be choosers. This shows you the rules for clan equipment and how clan mechs work. It shows you how to use formations, bonuses for formations, requirements for them, how to use a Nova formation, which is battle armor mixed with mechs, how to fight mechs in battle armor. It has the beginnings of your Combined Arms Warfare kick right here, and the introduction to the tech that everyone wants. Look at the numbers. Compare them to the numbers of the previous game box, and now roll a willpower check to not turn into a furry. And then we move on to the possible Alpha Strike starter box. This is quite possibly the best box for value that you're going to get, and you can start with this instead of anything else, as it uses, while similar, different entire rule sets. It is interchangeable with the minis, it is interchangeable with the universe. The only thing you can't do with the Battletech game proper and Alpha Strike is play at the same time. Alpha Strike is much faster, much simpler, much easier to get a hold of, and every time you buy a new Force Pack, the mechs in it will come with the Alpha Strike rules for those mechs. It is simple and accessible. Additionally, while this game does not have any map sheets like the previous 3 boxes have, it doesn't need them. It comes with a large selection of punch-out and fold-up terrain pieces that are designed specifically for Alpha Strike. It comes with a lot of forest, it comes with a lot of buildings, it's got enough for you to populate a large section of your floor or table and give rich terrain options for anyone willing to play the game. Everything else you can supplement later on with generic hobby gear, but everything you should need for a rather large amount of gameplay is there. And so that's the start of it. You have got these boxes that you can carry your mechs around in and terrain if you play Alpha Strike. You've got a rather respectable amount of mechs in these things. So, what else do I need? That's the very introduction of the game. No paints, no books, no record sheets, just everything you need in these boxes to play with these mechs in this way. However, there is so much more to be had for the rules. The main question you might have is, well, which is the core rulebook? I don't see anything saying the core rulebook. Well, the first thing you should get is Total Warfare. It is the non-truncated version of the basic rulebook that you'll find in the Game of Armored Combat. It has everything you need to know how to play the game in every kind of terrain that you'll find. It gives more examples for every step of the way, and it's a more complete gameplay system. Then comes Tech Manual, which shows you just what every single piece of equipment in the battle does. You look at everything and you see that every single unit in these games has been built following these rules. This is how you make your own units. This is the thing you will reference every time you try to do so in any campaigns or lasting games that you have. This is how you customize, this is how you personalize. Then, as you continue to buy mechs, you might be wondering what they do. You don't want to buy mechs not knowing what they do, so you need to find that out. Here you come to the TROs. The TRO Succession Wars is the one you want to use if you're trying to play as the Inner Sphere. It has all the intro tech mechs plus some variants of others. It tells you a large amount of the machines you've got. It tells you all the intro tech mechs that you can find, as well as a series of more advanced loadouts with the early and late Succession Wars tech levels. If you're the guy who failed his willpower check and now wants to play only with the clans, you'll need the TRO Clan Invasion. This is where the first clan tech is introduced and described much in the same way as the TRO Succession Wars. While if you want to play as the Inner Sphere, you still gain more mechs in this, and it is around here that we've got our models led up to. There are other TROs, there are far more to be had, but the third you should buy is the TRO Jihad. This has a lot of the tech that you haven't seen yet in any of the beginner boxes, furthering the timeline, and it has a tasty selection of new units, such as these Wolfenstein the New Order looking motherfuckers. There are lots of TROs for eras before and since all of this. They are usually a lot more limited in how many units they provide though. These three are the ones you want if you want to just get the broad strokes for each era. There are some units missing from each of these selections, but you will find them in the more limited TROs such as 3025, 3050, 3058, 3060, etc. Each of these is a small selection compared to the three I've described, but they have things that you will not find in these three. Mostly machines that haven't got minis yet, but there are ways to get them, just not from Catalyst. Well, I know how to play now, and I know what my units can do now. Where do I go from here? I would like to get some supplements. Supplements we have. First of all, try TACOps. There's two versions of TACOps. Tactical Operations, Equipment and Units. Tactical Operations, Advanced Rules. They both have a distinct set of advanced rules. You'll want to use the TACOps equipment and units if you want to know what any of the tech more advanced than the Clan Invasion starter box has. And you want to know the advanced rules if you want to start playing devious, dirty tricks on each other, which I fully endorse. Then there's the strategic operations, advanced aerospace rules. Will give you all the things you need for dropships, jump ships, warships, and what have you to go to and from space and the ground. It's got long-term issues as well, such as when you're between fights, which mechs do you repair? How long does it take? How easy is it? How do you get a hold of the parts? Strategic Operations has everything you need for that. Campaign Operations is for those who wish to play the game as a series of strung together related missions, and how to play a game as a narrative campaign similar to Dungeons & Dragons, but with much less character focus and more war machine focus. It gives you a rehash of the formations you have seen the beginnings of in the Clan Invasion box, as well as maybe a few more to do with other things than just mechs. You'll have, on top of that, piloting abilities. It also has factional bonuses. Things to do with how elite your force actually is will show you how many of the special factional bonuses you can grant your army. This book is not just limited to GMs or groups of friends. You may also find that this book will benefit you if you're trying to play a game with a tournament that allows for such things, or if you just want to personalize your own guys and have a sense of your dudes. Then there is the Interstellar Ops Alternative Eras book. This has all of the tech in the timeline. This book has when each piece of tech is introduced, when it's rendered obsolete, and when it goes extinct. It shows you how to use certain tactics that might make or lose friends. It also has juicy pieces of gear that you likely haven't seen before. They were in previous editions of BattleTech's rules for the role-playing games and such, as splat books and supplements for that, with a haphazard implementation in the tabletop wargame. Some considered it a bit much. However, here they have been given actual costs, and it's still worth it. I've made a couple of mentions of the role-playing game, and you probably know what those things are. You've probably heard about D&D. I mean, come on. And so the BattleTech role-playing game is called A Time of War. This book is mentioned a couple of times in Campaign Ops, and it is the role-playing game of the BattleTech universe. That's not here or there. We're talking about BattleTech. This is a very fun game once you can get through the character creation process. And there's also the A Time of War companion and the MechWarrior Destiny, which they're supplements mostly for that RPG element that you may or may not want. But it does have a rather useful set of tools to allow you to actually combine the RPG with your tabletop BattleTech wargame. So it might bear use, it might bear thought. I won't get into that because that is a can of worms within the rabbit hole. And we all know the only way to close a can of worms is with a bigger can. So that's a lot of stuff. And you're probably wondering, will all of this help me just shoot mechs with mechs? Yes, But if you just want to shoot mechs with mechs, you should probably find the BattleTech manual. If all you want to do is play the base BattleTech game, the closest sounding title to the base rules you'll get, and while some say you should lead with it, I say start with the actual rulebook and then move up and up and up. But it's got the primer for all of the basic parts of the game, like you'll find in a game of Armored Combat. It has some of the advanced rules and equipment. It has the things you need to put your mechs together and how to fight them. This is for people who you want to introduce to the game, but you want to keep it just simple. There is a lot more than this besides. There are periodic digests, campaign-centric books, Touring the Stars, planetary guides, novels, etc. Select these based on your whim and you'll be well served, but it will be more difficult to understand most of this if you don't have the things I've said just before. And in the spirit of the technical readouts, there are also the recognition guides. These are smaller scale TROs with a few mechs showing the new technology throughout the ages, and with the TROs being the purview of FASA and WizKids, they have injected a few new variants into the various stages of the game with the vehicles and the battle mechs in the recognition guides. They've got a few new units. They've got variants that are more up to date with the current timeline and smattered with a lot of new information. There is a lot of them, but they are pretty worthwhile, as you never know what you might fancy that you might find. You might be thinking, well, that's all nice and all, but where do I get all these things from? What you do is, you go outside, you touch some grass and concrete, and you go to your brick and mortar friendly local gaming store. There are more and more stores out there supplying BattleTech miniatures, BattleTech rules, etc. These are the things you want. You go to these places, you find the pieces, you get them. You go to your store, you ask if they can stock it. You ask for them to order it. Just be a big boy and use your words. There is also options online for those of us who want to burrow in like a tick and stay at home and just collect and collect until you're satisfied that you've got enough know-how and enough equipment to go out and not seem like a total noob. That's fine. That's what you get the websites for. But be warned about Catalyst Games. They are the people who currently have the license for the BattleTech IP, but their website, if you're Australian, fucking Jesus Christ. And no, it's only them that do it like this, okay? Only them. You think, oh, okay, cool, I'll just... Oh. My God. There's also a little bit of a matter about whether or not they have the stock that you think they do when you order it, and how long it takes for them to get it. It's not easy. The other thing you want to do is go to Fortress Minis. I'm not getting paid to shill for Fortress Minis, but you want to go to Fortress Minis. They actually have one of the better selections of BattleTech miniatures that you can find. They've collected a lot of producers of third-party minis, and they've put them under one roof. They've also got the only web store I've seen which has singles of the plastic new line of minis available to buy in anything other than salvage packs. You don't want to buy a salvage pack unless you're that much of a consumer. Don't do it. You don't know what you're getting in the salvage pack. With the singles, you do. I cannot understate the value I find in the new plastic minis. They are more supple, they don't bend irrevocably in the heat, unlike some drummers. The minis have a more coherent size ratio for the various weights, and they just look better. If you're a stickler for the old Iron Wind Metals minis, well, that's up to you. You want to go Ralpatha, you can find those in Fortress as well. Go to Fortress. Get your things. Get your third-party infantry. They don't sell infantry in Catalyst. You won't get anything other than mechs from Catalyst. Maybe a Shalone bomber. Maybe elementals. You want anything else? You go anywhere else. Want to deliver to Australia? You go anywhere other than Catalyst. There's also Barnes & Noble. There are some force packs which are Barnes & Noble exclusive, and possibly even to this day, the only way to get a plastic annihilator, for example, is through Barnes & Noble. They do ship to Australia, don't worry. They do ship across the world. Just, it might take a while. Nothing spectacularly long though, and again, only Catalyst does this. Now, there's a lot of books that I mentioned. Do you want to buy the book? Do you want to have to spend $80 on a book that you might not actually get that much out of because everyone else around you doesn't really want to play with those rules, or it turns out you got the wrong one and the thing you actually wanted was in another one? Do you want to spend $160 to get the book that you wanted? I don't think so, alright? Go to 4chan. Trust me, seriously, go to 4chan. There is an archive or two, and I'm not going to show you where or how to get it. People like to go into the archives 4chan grants people from their community and dob them in so that they're ruined for everyone. I don't want that to happen. I don't care if you're a paid shell, I don't care if you're the CEO of Catalyst Games, because this archive has things from Fasacorp and WizKids, documents that you will never get again, documents that you don't have an equivalent for, documents that have things that are not found in anything that you will find in the official game store. The only way you're going to get these things other than 4chan is if you go to a third-party store that collects people's second-hand books. This is in no way going to hurt Catalyst Games if you get them. If you buy them, you don't fund Catalyst Games. The main thing you got to remember is that the minis are made by Topps, not made by Catalyst. The books are the things you fund Catalyst through. And these books that are in the 4chan archives are mostly Fasacorp, mostly WizKids, and yes, some Catalyst games. But seriously, again, you don't want to spend $80 for it to be the wrong book. See what it is, see what's in it, then buy it. Buy it knowing what it is. The other thing you can do, if you just want to learn how to play the game and not have to buy any physical copy, you go to MegaMech on GitHub. You download MegaMech, it's got every single unit you could ever play with in every unit type. It's got everything from infantry to multi-million ton warships. It's complete. You can do everything with it other than giving formation bonuses based on the types. But that's fine. You can just give those pilots the abilities and then there you go. You can modify your mechs and put it into there with MegaMech Lab. This game does all the math for you, but it shows you everything you need, and you can see the range bands for the weapons when you go into the game. You can see the maps. It's got all the official maps, and you can put them together how you want. It's got a whole lot more available to it besides. I will need to make another video on MegaMech just to show the things you can do and how to navigate it. But I want my physical army, you might say. I want an actual goddamn game. I want to go into the gaming store and play Battletech. Good for you. So who do I play as? You'll find that pretty much all the factions have the same broad stroke battlefield tactics and strategies. It doesn't really matter who you play. Pick the culture that you like. In the old archive documents, you'll find information on the factions, the main houses and such. But when it comes to which mechs you use, don't bother. Do not build your faction based on the boxes. Just get the boxes of the mechs you want and put them together. It's better to have more than you need. You can always do a buy-sell trade. You could always try selling them to Fortress Minis. Buy the boxes that have the unit roles you want. You will have an excess anyway. So it will be an inevitable slog unless you buy solo minis from Fortress or Ironwind Metals, but they will cost so much more than a force pack. What about non-mech units? Non-mech units. Don't go to Catalyst, they don't have any. I mean, again, other than Elementals and Shylone Bombers, you're not going to get anything for a while. So you go to Ironwind Metals, and they've got a lot of the units there. Or you go to Fortress Minis, or you go and you search through all the STL databases and you find someone's 3D printed version of a Quad V that no one else has made. I have got to warn you ahead of time, there are some people who will say 3D printing is bad. To hell with them. You will not find a Notos model. You will not find a Harpagos model. You will not find a Gatekeeper. You will have to 3D print them. And that is perfectly fine. 3D printing mechs and units that don't have a Cannon Mini is, well, necessary if you want to use that mini. How is there any compunction? How is there any debate about this? 3D printing in a model agnostic game, who cares? Friendly local gaming stores might profit from you buying mech packs, but when they come to a games day, to the strawmen that say you shouldn't 3D print your minis, I posit the question, what's the difference between rocking up to a games day at your friendly local gaming store, or even a Catalyst store, if they existed, with a 3D printed mini? And also, if you bought directly from Catalyst or an actual web store, what's that different from 3D printing for your friendly local gaming store? You didn't buy it from them, but you bought it. And if it's not a direct Catalyst-funded Games Day thing, and it's just your local brick-and-mortar shop, what difference does it make to that shop if you bought it from Catalyst themselves or 3D printed it? They're not getting the money. Topps is getting the money. Who cares? All right? If it is easily identifiable as the mech you're saying it is, that's all that should matter. 3D printing is fine, especially, again, if there isn't an official mini for it. With a little imagination, vegetarian cuisine needn't be dull. And also, with a little bit of passing through guides like this and others that you may find, you will have a fast track to the rules and models that you actually want for your force, for your hobby, and for your game experience.